What's up everybody, it's Yelo Autosports. Welcome to another series on Yelo Autosports YouTube channel. Now in this video series, we're going to cover everything there is to know about paint correction. But what I'm going to do different here is I'm not going to do like every channel that we see on YouTube. We're not going to get super technical. I'm going to explain things to you in simple terms so that it makes sense to you. And we're just going to buff and polish this. Now, if you want to do this into a business, there's a lot more to it. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing. There's a lot of knowledge behind how to properly paint correct a car and how to bring it to its top result. But that's a different subject for a different day. You can message me, leave me a message, subscribe to the channel, leave me comments, and we can answer all those questions. In this series, I'm going to keep it very simple, but I'm still going to help you and show you what it takes to get a regular daily driving car here. This is my 07 Civic Si that I just picked up, 80,000 miles, never been buffed, never been polished, full of swirls. So it's a perfect example for us to use on this in this video series. But we're going to cover everything from the tools that I'm using, the products I'm using, and all this comes from 8 years of experience running my own detail shop full time and going through many classes across the US as well as in Europe. So we're going to cover all that in the series. Sit tight, enjoy the show. If you got any questions about this, make sure you leave them in the comments below and I'll make sure to answer everything. So let's get right into making this car look a lot better. Okay, so let's get right into it. Part one of this series is going to be how do we prep this car and get ready for paint correction. Now when I'm saying paint correction, what I mean is we're going to take a buffer, a dual action or rotary polisher, electric, and you're going to put it on the paint. Now when we do that, we're essentially cutting some clear coat to get to a nicer finished result. But before we can even get into all that, we got to just wash the car and get that surface completely prepped, free of contaminants, so that we can actually run our machines on this paint and not cause further damage. So let's get right into the wash. We'll take you over to the area where I got my bucket, my soap, and all those things, and let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna take our 5-gallon bucket. We're gonna fill it with clean water. Now there's two things that I have in here. I have 2 mitts. They're color coded. I have a black one and a blue one. Now for me, what those mean to me is that I know that one is going to go for the lower half of the car and the other one's going to go for the upper part. Now the next thing we're going to use is my power washer here. Now any power washer will do. Even if you don't have a power washer, you can also just hook up a garden hose to it. Now the only tip I will have about this is try to wash your vehicle either under a cloudy day or somewhere where it's covered and you're not going to have direct sunlight. The downside is if you're washing with just hot sun, unfortunately that water is going to evaporate quickly and it also dry out that soap on the surface, and you want to be able to work within a time frame without all that stuff evaporating on you. So like I said, I'm going to fill up this bucket. My mitts are already in here. I'm going to fill it with nice fresh water, and then I'm going to use the power washer and I'm going to take it over to the car and start washing it. Once we get over there, I'll run you through all the different steps that I like to take to make sure that it's all nice and clean and ready for paint correction. When you're gonna wash your car, I always like to wash from the top down. Why? We want gravity in our favor, right? So we're gonna wash from the top, and as the water comes down and runs down the car, it's actually gonna drag and take some of those things and also bring it down all the way to the ground and off this car. There are also a few key areas that I like to address and spend a little bit more time on when I'm power washing. That's anywhere you're gonna have a little bit of a step. So in this case, you have the spoiler where a lot of dirt can pull here in between, as well as near my license plate. I find it always really quite dirty. Near your front bumper, make sure you knock as much grime as you can when you've got the power of the gravity and the water working together to just move some of those things. So let's get rinsing this car and move forward. Now that we've rinsed the whole car, we're gonna now apply our soap solution. Now you can do a 2-bucket method if you do not have a power washer with this foam cannon. Now you can find really cheap ones on Amazon that work just as effectively. At the end of the day, I just want to get soap on this car. I will leave links to all this stuff below. So let's go ahead and get some soap on the car. that we got the car all foamed up, I'm gonna go ahead and use my mitts. I like to use two different mitts. One is gonna be for the lower quarter of the car. That mitt will never touch anything above that or at the top. The bottom is always gonna be the dirtier part of the car, so I like to commit just one to that. Make sure you do that. Make sure you color code them so it's easy to remember. And then the second one will be on the top. Now, we're not scrubbing too much using these, okay? We really just wanna knock things off the surface. We'll get the contaminants with the clay bar following this. For now, it's just get this dirt off and rinse it off. Now I'm going to use my Dreadnought XL, one of my favorite microfiber towels for drying car. The nice thing, nice and big, so really these two will be plenty sufficient. We're just going to get all this water off and then we'll go right into the next step to keep on going on this paint correction. Yeah. No, I just want him to figure it out, man. Okay, so we've washed and rinsed our vehicle and we've dried it completely. It is now ready for the next step. This next step is called clay bar. What it's doing is essentially we're gonna run a piece of clay on the surface of the car. It's gonna pick up any contaminants that are embedded in the paint. I know we all think of this being a hard surface, but it's actually kind of pliable, malleable, and it can absorb things, contamination. Things do stick to paint, and that's why we need to get rid of it. We need to remove all that so that our surface is bare before we start cutting or buffing. And so we're gonna use our clay mitt or clay towel. There are two different types of clay out in the market today. Most generally, you're gonna find your clay bar. In this case, this is Clay Magic. We use this one a lot, and it is my personal favorite for the high-end details. The second piece is gonna be a synthetic clay mitt. A lot of different companies make this. It's a little bit cheaper at times, and it can be rinsed off as opposed to the clay bar. When it drops to the ground, a lot of times you want to just get rid of it. So the clay mitt, I think, definitely has its place in detailing. Some people swear by this, some people swear by the clay bar. As somebody that's used both, I think just having both in your arsenal is really good. In this case, for my car, I'm going to use the clay mitt. The reason I'm going to use the clay mitt is I think it is a little bit more functional for the everyday detailer. And it's going to go a longer way, and it's a little bit more cost efficient as well. The last thing you're going to need is you're going to need some sort of lubrication for your paint. We're going to be using here Optimum No Rinse. It's simply a polymer lubricant, and we're going to add that to some water, and we're just going to use this as our surface lubricant to run our clay bar in order to get all the contamination off. And then from there, dry it one more time, and then we'll go into everything paint correction. Okay, so we're gonna get into clay bar. I've already explained what clay bar does for you, but I wanted to show you a little tip here. Now, obviously you can pick up some nitrile gloves, very simple, or you can put your hand in a plastic bag, right? Get that from the pantry. When you run your hand on your paint, you're actually gonna be able to hear how gritty this paint is. I'm gonna pull the mic off my chest here, and I'm just gonna allow you to hear what I'm listening to and feeling. So there's multiple senses we're using here. Once I clay bar, I'm gonna go ahead and use my gloved hand again, and I'm gonna be listening and feeling at the same time, making sure that I've removed everything. Now, with a clay bar, you can always visually inspect it. If you saw earlier, my clay bar is blue, therefore I can't see what's on it. With a clay mitt, I can't see it as much. It is a black surface, but I can still use these other senses to test if I've removed the contaminants off this paint. So I'm gonna just let you listen in on this quick. This is with no clay bar. And we can actually hear just how gritty that is. So now let me run my clay mitt on it, and we'll go and get you that sound one more time. Okay, so now let me show you guys, after I've just clayed this one little surface here, what it sounds like up close once it's clayed. Now, a lot of this, you're actually going to be able to feel too. So, like I said, you're using multiple senses. We're both listening and feeling at the same time. Generally, one pass is good. If you still feel a few more things, come back, hit that a second time. The only thing that you want to make sure is obviously add a little bit more slip, a little bit more lubrication, and go ahead and keep claying. So we're going to go ahead and just clay this whole car, get it dry, and then it'll be ready for paint correction, and that'll complete all of step 1 on how to prep a car before a paint correction.
Physically punish the child, I think it's